Okay, so this is the Battle of Halmstad, 1676 in December. Now this is actually in the Scania province itself. Very briefly, look at the Roman battle there. 1676, this is in August. In Scania itself, fairly soon after the new king, Karl the 11th, who's over here, has been coronated, and the war started. And it's a situation where the Danes split their forces into two. And this army here, under Duncan, had set off to go besiege. I think Halmstad, I'm not sure. Yeah. And they have no artillery and not much chance of that. There's some forces in Norway that they might have joined up with. But anyway, Charles, however, noted the split and went off after this smaller force with pretty much a big segment of his army. Now, what historically happened, the Danes decided they had to give up after seeing the siege, after seeing some cav skirting around. They couldn't stay in this exposed position. So they moved away from the city, or the town, or fortress, and positioned themselves in front of this river. At this point, they don't believe there's a full army coming at them. But even after there were signs that such was the case, and we can see right now there isn't a full army after them, there's just one cav unit. But even after it was fairly clear that this wasn't the case, the Danes continued to not do much and just hold their position. One unit ended up breaking through and making its way out to safety. I'm going to play the extended scenario. There's a shorter historical scenario that starts over here and only ends here. This one ends out here, although I may end it earlier because the only reason they extended it so far is increase of options might cause the game to go longer than it would otherwise. So I've chosen to play this one because it's something I actually have missed in a lot of these games is, hey, where's my space to maneuver? How come I'm starting right up against the line, and with such clear objectives? I think this is the first chance that I have to explore a little bit more of what can be done in terms of improving the chances, as it were. Now, and I certainly like that in games like Gettysburg, even though I tend to follow the historical in them. In this one, I don't think I really want to follow the historical. The only question I have is whether I should apply some kind of initial penalty to the Danes. I'm not going to, but maybe if I play it other times, I will. Now, we have a couple interesting terrain features. This is really a river, not a big one. Cav can go through it, nothing else really can, although there are a couple of fords and there's a bridge. There's different victory points for escape. The two scenarios have different victory conditions, which is something kind of interesting. I didn't realize this about this system, but I should have after the last battle, Fehrbellin. You're expected to beat the historical, more or less, I think, in the historical scenario's victory conditions, and you're expected to do fairly well, even in the ahistorical one where the Danes can move around a little bit more. And, I've got to keep that in mind. I'm not going to try to beat the historical. I'm going to try to do as well as I can given the circumstances. That's how I like to play things. So, anyway, I'm going to use the second scenario's victory conditions as a judge, but I'm not terribly concerned about that. I'm more concerned about who's doing better, which I think is just a straight comparison of victory points when it comes down to it. Now, it is possible in these systems, at least with me playing, you can make fun of my tactical abilities or whatever, but it is possible for the lesser force to gain a win. A real win. So I wouldn't totally rule out the possibility that the Danes with freedom could actually defeat the Swedes directly. A couple other special things here. One, after turn 3, the Danes can start exiting units, and that gives them victory points. And that's basically a preservation attempt, which is, I think, where I'm heading with it. There are other options that one could take. Try to engage directly, which may be more or less what I'm looking at. The worry I have here is that there's not a lot of space back here, so if the Danes advance, I'm not sure if they catch the Swedes off guard, they may well end up being able to just run out without a problem. Whereas I doubt that the Swedes would have moved forward so far to set up if they saw the Danes advancing. They might have held back and tried to hold the battle somewhere else. The other thing is we have attached units. 2 heavy infantry units are part of the center wing in this scenario. I'm marking that not on the units themselves because there's plenty of clutter, but I'm marking that up here. And those will change if I allocate them to their proper wings, which can be done. But that will turn cav wings on the edges, of course, into infantry wings. Infantry wings, the big difference there is the range the commander can spread them out. Right now I'd rather keep them cav wings and see what happens. If I need the infantry to bolster them, I might make that change. There is one other which is if the Swedes manage to, now this is worded differently than I thought it was, at the end of the game, whenever the game ends essentially, if no Danes have left the map voluntarily, there's at least one Swedish unit that's not morale broken north of the Fjällen. Swede gets 40 extra victory points. Basically, if I can take this river, if I can cross it, and prevent the Danes from escaping at all, I've totally wiped out their army is pretty much the idea in that case. They're pinned against the river, essentially. And that would probably be a complete surrender. It was close enough to that, historically. All except that one unit did surrender, I believe. Alright, well, let's get started on this one. I'm really tempted to give some kind of penalty to the Danes until some event comes into play. But we'll see how it happens, because getting everybody out of receive charge is a tough thing to have. That might take several turns in and of itself. So at the end of the first turn, we're seeing the Danes are deploying a little bit more aggressively, moving cav up to screen this hole in the river. Now these are steep slopes, so they actually provided some defensive capability beyond what we're used to seeing in these games. There aren't a lot that have just steep slopes everywhere. My plan is to move the infantry up along this creek line and gain the bonus of that. Mainly the Swedes are going to be bringing cav in initially. Not that I know that, but I'm trying to get off the board. I want to actually do it. I moved these cav up forward, but didn't get a continuation, so they're somewhat disordered. That could be an opportunity. I don't know. There aren't one cav attacking that many, even disordered. Doesn't seem like a good idea to me, from what I'm seeing in this game. The infantry got stuck behind in receive charge formation and really couldn't advance very well. These guys took formation hits, but they got a chance to recuperate. They actually got 3 activations. So the Swedish cavalry that effectively would become the right wing. I'm not sure that's going to happen in this game because I'm not sure I'm going to get a deployment chance. Came in in column and actually managed to get 3 full activations. Better than that, an attempt to interdict or preempt their deployment failed. So now they've got a nice little screen in place, and they can bring that second column up, I hope. We'll see. I should actually move this guy off the road, because that'll be more annoying. Now it's going to be an activation over on the Danes. And here at the end of 2 turns, looks like I'm dooming my Danes again. Well, we're seeing the risk of not standing back and holding a defense. Obviously, trying to pull back behind this river might have been a more valuable defense, but my goal is to go this way. I don't want to do that. So, having the river at your back, other than for crazy morale reasons, is just horrible. So I felt at least moving up to this streamline would make a lot of sense. Problem is, the infantry is dragging its feet. So now I've got my cav, formed up and everything, but facing a lot more Swedish cav. I think it's going to get ugly real fast. That's just my guess. We'll see.